Welcome in to another edition of the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. Andrew Calista, Frank Banana, the York Daily Record, and Mike Gross of the Gross Rational Product on Substack. Two great longtime beat writers. One guy who just, acted around on TV following Penn State for about 15 years. We're here giving you some off-season knowledge. We got a great show ahead. Penn State wrestling. They're pretty good. They're always in the news. They're always really good. We got the voice of the Nittany solid. Exactly, Mike. We got the voice of the Nittany Lions, Jeff Ironhead Byers, coming on. Guys, before we get to this, I have to tell you about something, a little personal experience. Team USA winning the men's hockey gold is probably the third best day of my life.
Are you serious?
It's the third best day of my life. Behind the birth of my daughter, behind my wedding to my wonderful wife, Megan. The third best day of my life. It's something I've waited my entire life for. I cried for a half hour after the game.
Oh my God.
The picture you see on your screen right now, folks, is me holding my daughter in tears, and she is wrapped in a flag that was on top of the Pennsylvania State Capitol. That flag also visited the Pope last year when I went over to see the American Pope. I was over for a wedding. I didn't specifically go over because it was an American Pope, but I took a flag to the ceremony. Yeah, I've always had a special connection to it. I have a voicemail from Mike Ruzioni on my phone that I keep. Mike Ruzioni has done me a favor. He's a wonderful guy. But yeah, this flag was on top of Congress. I had that one hanging out of my house on Saturday and Sunday. This is a 1980 Lake Placid hockey stick that my parents brought home for me. They saw Team USA play 3 times at the 80 games. And this is my Ruzioni autograph. So yeah, Team USA winning the gold medal, really, really important to me.
Good for you.
God bless you.
I just wanted to share that. So
yeah, God bless you.
Yeah. Disappointment as a freshman in high school in 2002. Disappointment in 2010. Hate Sidney Crosby. As a Penguins fan, hate him when he has that leaf on his jersey. Oh, terrible. All right. So I got all that stuff out. I have a picture of me crying on the podcast. Not that anybody cares, but yeah, USA. You're all about Connor Hellebuyck, by the way. So talking Penn State football, a team that's always used to be in the bridesmaids when it comes to big games. It's a new era though. Matt Campbell's in. You guys went through a marathon session. I couldn't make it. Went through a marathon session of Penn State football players coming in and telling you why was that Penn State. Frank, start with you. What was your big takeaway?
I've never before got to meet so many new Penn State football players at one time in my life. All the transfer guys, they pretty much made most all of them available. And we have never talked or met any of them, obviously, since they all just got here in January. That was a little overwhelming. And the big takeaway is like, there's like, it's so weird. It's a weird dynamic. 20 some guys followed Matt Campbell from Iowa State that are now part of Penn State. And then they also have kind of an interesting like Samoan mix here. We got like guys that are family heritage from Tonga, from Hawaii, from California. I think most all of them big linemen. And the new guys, way better talkers to reporters than the previous Penn State guys. These guys were pretty entertaining. Maybe they haven't been, what do you want to call it? They haven't been through the system yet, where they suddenly
that's part of it.
Lose part of their brains and they can't speak eloquently to us anymore, or not eloquently. These guys were good. They were just
it's not about, I know what you mean. It's not about eloquence, but it is.
No, it's not eloquence. I'm a reporter and I still can't.
Being engaging and being
being yourself instead of company line. I think. Yeah. Exactly.
So anyway, that's my take.
A couple of things. One is Tony Rojas. I thought it was very interesting to listen to him talk, and we've heard a lot of things about how the culture kind of fell apart last year at Penn State at the end of Franklin's administration, and Rojas kind of confirmed that a little bit, and even to the point where he actually said academics fell off. Now, I didn't really get a chance to ask him to elaborate on that, and he probably wouldn't have. But we've heard a lot of that, and it just is very, very striking to me that not only on the field, but that things eroded off the field in terms of just the daily operation of the program in a way that maybe we didn't see coming or didn't realize. I thought that was very, very striking. And then some of the Iowa State guys are saying, man, really great places to eat in State College. I really like it. I really, which
is that more on how bad
maybe,
Ames, Iowa is, or what?
Let's tell you something about Ames, Iowa.
Yeah.
So,
I got to tell you, there are some great places to eat in State College.
there are, sure. Yeah.
Great atmosphere places. But in terms of being like a foodie,
No.
no. Like no. So
I was surprised by that. Yeah.
Going back to the Rojas thing, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but it's funny how that's what Tony Rojas is saying. And remember, when he got injured and James Franklin got fired, and there were likes on social media and this being scrubbed from social media and things like that, Tony Rojas was gone to the Twitter world and the social media world. Tony Rojas was gone. He was going to be James Franklin's number one guy down at Virginia Tech. He was the leaker, is what people were saying online. It had to be Rojas. And then there's Tony Rojas sitting in front of you guys as reporters yesterday, basically laying it out there what happened to the program. It's kind of an interesting dynamic how people jump to conclusions. And nobody on the beat jumped to conclusions on that. It was all outside noise that these athletes were dealing with last year, going through a terrible season. And he now seems to be.
And Tony Rojas was asked directly, were you the audio tape leaker? Of course, he denied it. And he said he did not know who did that. But I would have thought he was gone. And this NIL age, and this isn't a knock against Tony per se, but I would have thought just that the vibe to me was that he was going to take a better payday somewhere else.
Yeah.
He's one of the, probably to me, is the most shocking return. And they truly needed him. If you look at their linebacker room, it's Tony Rojas, 3 guys from Iowa State, who, of course, Penn State fans know nothing about, and a couple of young kids. And that's like it. So if you imagine Tony leaving too, anyway. The other thing is Tony Rojas and Rocco Becht, the new quarterback, you could argue are the 2 highest profile guys maybe on the team, and both of them are coming back from injuries. So we may not see a whole lot of them in the spring. Of course, both of them said that they will be full go by the summer. So we'll see.
And Rocco said that he's going to start throwing on Saturday. Saturday will be his first limited throwing session. And then he said he reiterated what has been said before, which is that he expects to get about half of spring practice. He expects to start participating about halfway in. Another thing about Rocco is he has his own logo. Did you notice that on his hat front?
Yes, he talked about that, I guess, a little bit. NIL deal, getting his own design.
Like Tiger Woods and Tom Brady, he has his initials graphically created a little logo out of it. So there you go.
Tom Bradley actually had a TB logo before Tom Brady. He tells me that all the time. So I just want to give Scrap a shout out.
Often mentioned in the same breath, those two.
Yes, absolutely. Who do we want to hear from first? We want to hear Tony Rojas about kind of play calling and meeting DeAntoine Lynn, or do we want to go Rocco Becht on why he followed Penn State, Matt Campbell?
I vote
Use
for
your own judgment. You're the king of the visuals, big guy. Use your own judgment.
I follow Frank Bodani on the road to restaurants. I will follow Frank Bodani's advice here on what soundbite to play. Tony Rojas on kind of what went wrong at Penn State, meeting DeAntoine Lynn, new defensive coordinator, former Penn State corner. Here's Tony Rojas.
Matt, we met probably once as a unit so far, just because the coach was down the road and that type of stuff. But we've met and he's cool. I think he's cool peoples and just the energy I feel like he brings in his character and what his mindset is for us. I think he's going to be great and it matches us. And he's the type of coach, so not just call plays that he thinks will work, but or call plays that he thinks that we're best at, and not what he thinks that we're best at. Because at the end of the day, it's the players playing. And I feel like last year, because that the biggest thing was, plays are getting called that we weren't best at or we weren't really the best at even in practice. And it wasn't really in the best of our shoes. And
I mean, the three things I picked out of that: Antoine Lynn is good people's. At the end of the day, it's players making plays. And last year, plays were being called that Tony Rojas is admitting were not the best play calls, and they were not what they were best at.
Well, and Penn State fans, if you watch the UCLA game, you might probably would agree maybe with Tony on that. How about that?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Penn State defense look more lost in the last 30 years, possibly, than in that game? No, what a disconnect.
It's also so refreshing, too. It is. And I know when you have a complete regime change, but there are guys on the staff that are still on the defensive side of the staff up there. These guys are talking openly, and it is refreshing. And I don't know if that's like a carryover from Terry Smith. They're taking the head coach's lead. We called the plays to throw it deep. I said this is the package we're putting in. It's just refreshing to hear these guys, and it validates a lot of what we're asking last year and just not getting the answers to, regarding the staff.
Yeah, that's always how it goes. But I find a little bit that once guys leave a situation, it gets a little easier to take your shots. I mean, certainly some of the things that got said about Mike Yurcich, for example, when he left were pretty, well, it would have been great to hear this sooner, but that wasn't going to happen. To some extent, that's kind of human nature. But I did think that some of the things that Rojas said were really, really interesting, just in terms of we're being held accountable more now in every area.
Yeah, I mean, he made a comment about, asked him about, well, how can you be a better linebacker this coming year than you were in the past? And he talked immediately about how he felt that he was somehow held back from maybe becoming that from the previous staff or coaching. I mean, that's certainly what he was intimating. So what exactly that means? I mean, you're talking about maybe one of the most athletic guys. I mean, we still don't know how good of a linebacker he is, especially at a place like Penn State, but certainly one of the most athletically talented guys. So fascinating to watch him among a lot, but especially him going forward.
And we talked about how, Frank, you mentioned a minute ago about how they don't have a lot of obvious returning options at that position. So what if he had not come? What if he had not stayed? I mean, well, it feels like maybe in terms of budgeting the NIL money or whatever, it seems like it was him or Amari Campbell, maybe. And Amari Campbell, of course, left and said he couldn't be undervalued. He used the term undervalued, so that's how that looks. Almost like the quarterbacks, they weren't going to be able to keep both Becht and Grunkemeyer. They weren't going to be able to keep both Rojas and Campbell.
That's a very good point, actually, because of what Amari said. And Amari, if he feels disrespected, it could be, well, look what I produced last year. I played in every game. I led the team in tackles. I did everything, and maybe you're giving him more money type of thing. I mean, I don't know. But
yeah, that's how it looks. We don't know.
I got to point out that one of the Iowa State transfer linebackers is named Caleb Bacon. If that does not sound like a 1970s football card from like the Cleveland Browns type of name, that's throwback, man. And these guys, they have a throwback quality to them. Would you possibly agree for these Iowa State transfers?
Yeah.
Well, we're getting into that. I got two more.
We're getting into it.
We're going to get into that. So going back to the Amari Campbell, he did say at records he valued, consistency. No surprise then in that case that he went with Jim Knowles to Tennessee. So talking about guys following Matt Campbell, I think it's important. Rocco Becht had other options to go, but he chose familiarity, and this is why.
If I'm gonna be honest, I definitely felt like when Campbell took this job, this was probably the number one priority that I wanted to come here and play for him for my 5th year. But obviously, there's always going to be schools that kind of reach out to you and spit you ideas of what they want and what they want to see happen. And I was entertaining those a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, I think my main decision was just coming to play for Matt Campbell for my final year, just because I had built relationships with a bunch of the guys here already, and I didn't want to ruin any of those. And truly, just yeah, great coaching staff was brought here, and I wanted to be a part of that at a great university.
Two things. He is loyal. Just listening to him, I didn't want to ruin the relationships that I built. I mean, this kid's loyal. Two, he's not a Division I quarterback. He is an Olympic snowboarder with that hat. He needs to be cutting it up on the trails. He looks like he's a gold medal Olympian on that. So,
Yeah,
but he's a quarterback. I love the logo. Frank, you stole it. I was all talking about how this logo had snowboarder vibes all over the place for me. But no, obviously he's a Division I quarterback. So
I was talking to is it Hansen, the running back?
Carson Hansen.
And he said that he thought Becht was kind of the first domino to fall in this sort of mass exodus from Iowa State to Penn State. And I thought also Marcus Neal, the safety, who was an all Big 12 guy. And he said, as soon as he found out, it looks like Campbell's leaving, there was the initial shock of that. And I asked him, well, was your next thought, maybe I'm going to Penn State? And he said, yeah, it was. That's like the first thing I thought was, I'm going to be going to Penn State now. Now, Becht said the first domino was Matt Campbell, which of course is true. But I thought it was interesting how that, the Campbell thing happened so fast, and then this mass exodus happened so fast. Everything got processed pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, Rocco Becht, from talking to people, appears to be, as much as possible, a connector and a leader of young men. So having your quarterback be that experienced and that well respected as one of the guys who could follow. I mean, Matt Campbell couldn't have probably had a better position, so to speak, than to have Rocco Becht going into his senior year, being that productive, be his quarterback that could come here. Because I think you're right. I think that made it a lot easier for a lot of the guys, especially
and also Becht himself seems like he really understands that I'm a leader. It's almost like a political position, being starting quarterback. The leadership responsibility. You talk about I got everybody's phone number right away, so I could text everybody. And every time I met one of my teammates, every time I saw one of my teammates, I went up and introduced myself to them. He can't do these throwing sessions that they're doing this winter with the wide receivers, but he's there kind of supervising the throwing sessions. Very, very conscious of the stuff that goes into being the starting quarterback beyond what you do on the field.
Here's a good story from one of the Iowa State transfers, Brett Escoden, or wide receiver. He talked about his best Rocco Becht story was 2 years ago. They're at UCF. Becht throws a pick six, throws another pick six that would have been a pick six, but it was like guy dropped the ball on the 1 or something. They're down by 7 in this rocking stadium with 2 minutes to go, and Becht pulls the team aside and says, dude, this is what we practice for. This is what we live for. We're going down and we're winning. And it sounds maybe cliche, like a cliche, but Brett is like, I'm a freshman. I was convinced right then that that's exactly what we were going to do. And of course, Becht did it. He did a lot of it with his legs. They win the game in like the final 10 seconds because Becht scores a rushing touchdown. And he just said, he had me. Like, this is a leader. And, as a Penn State follower, right, you go back to Kerry Collins in 94, right, before Illinois. Mm-hmm. Guys, we're going to win this. You go back to Michael Robinson in 05 at Northwestern. And I think that's what it calls up, those types of memories. And, of course, he's already being compared to his assistant football coach, right, Trace McSorley, who had some of those same qualities. So, good company.
I don't know how good he is. I don't have a good sense of that yet. People aren't talking about him much. The NFL draft geeks, you don't hear anything about him in that regard. I don't know what he is on the field. But the things that we can know now, seem very, very positive.
Like Trace, like Mike Robinson, I think. I do hear that he has a really good, I mean, I've heard repeatedly he has a really good, accurate deep ball. And if you see highlights of him,
He's definitely a good college football player.
You
No
will
doubt.
see that. He just doesn't have, I don't think, the size and the measurables and the, that kind of
Just be a gamer. Just be a gamer.
He's
Honestly, just be a tough competitor gamer.
Well, I
little-
just want to be that, but for them to really get where they want to go, he's got to be a little more than that.
He's kind of, I wouldn't want to say maybe the opposite of Drew Aller, who's going to be at the NFL scouting combine, of course, this week. But you know what I mean? The guy that was big, huge arm, all of this, where predictions and prognostications of where Drew's going to be and go. But Rocco Becht, maybe more like just go out and win.
Listen, that's all it is. Just go out and win. Doesn't have to be flashy. And maybe this year it's a little bit different, but because of like all the roster turnover and stuff, maybe a little bit more is expected out of him. But if he had 2 years in the system, and it would be the same with Ethan Grunkmeyer. Like I thought Ethan Grunkmeyer was like a Matt McGloin version, just a gamer who was going to go out and play. And like if Matt McGloin was a starting quarterback for Penn State last year, Penn State's in the college football playoff and is one of the top 4 seeds. So I truly believe that. I do. I
haven't heard this take before.
Yeah.
Mike, have you?
Couple other things want to skew there.
If Matt McGloin was the starting quarterback for Penn State last year, it's a completely different attitude, top down on the roster. And I get that there'd be some defensive, there could be some defensive issues, but offensively, I think Penn State literally had the talent to be a top 4 team last year. Probably got to the Big Ten championship. They probably beat Indiana the way that game played out. A little bit more experience, and again, I'm taking Matt McGloin as a senior, and I know that's a crazy crystal ball take, but I'm taking Matt McGloin as a senior.
Yeah, that's
over
true.
a sophomore.
That's a good clarification.
So,
well, yeah, and here's the thing: maybe they technically could be more on that path if they get a break and they win the Oregon game, right? Physically, but the thing is, would that team have the mental capacity or the fortitude or whatever else to do what you're saying?
Yes, because McGloin would punch him in the face.
Despite getting a break at Oregon, would they have had that makeup to go and do that? I'm not sure they have the makeup. You think they do?
McGloin is General Patton. Like, he is General Patton. Like,
wow,
that's all I'm saying. He would get everybody else in line. I obviously think very highly of Matt McGloin's attitude.
And this George C. Scott.
Like, put him in front of a flag. I love that I came with props today.
You did.
One more soundbite before we get to our guest, Jeff Byers, talking Penn State wrestling. And it is Marcus Neal, who is built like a linebacker, all Big 12 safety. And this is a guy, listen to this soundbite, he will drag you into the fire.
I'm one of those leaders, like I want to show people. I feel like I show more than I probably speak sometimes. Like I want to show people to just like how to do the right thing and I like want to bring people along with me, like when I learn a new team and stuff like that. So I think it's been pretty nice, being able to connect with anyone. Like I'm one of those type of guys, like I could connect with anyone. So
follow me. Follow me is the message from that soundbite.
More of a linebacker body type than I expected with him. I was, and also very gregarious, good talker, like we were talking about earlier. It looks like a big personality.
Yeah. All right, you guys have had enough of my crazy takes. Let's get to somebody with a little bit more reasonable takes when it comes to Penn State in general, but especially Penn State wrestling. We're proud to bring on the voice of Penn State wrestling, Jeff Ironhead Byers. Ironhead, thanks for joining the show and being a great friend.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Obviously, we have to talk Penn State wrestling. It's not like they've had a bad year. Well, they never have a bad year. That's the great thing about Penn State wrestling. Down years are, a team national championship and not setting a points record. That is the standard. But we're getting ready to go into the postseason here. Big Tens is coming up here in just a few days away. Then it's on to the bigger and better prize. Obviously, winning the Big Ten tournament kind of is more difficult in a lot of past years than winning the national tournament. So what is the talk in the room right now and the mindset for this lineup that may be the best ever for Cale Sanderson getting ready for the postseason?
Yeah, I think it's really just about trying to be the best that they can be, and I think the coaches um, really have down to a science how to get their guys to compete their best at the NCAA tournament, and obviously a step along that way is the Big Ten tournament. But it's kind of fine tuning some things on the technical front, and then just really trying to make sure everybody is rested, feels good physically, mentally, has the right approach, all of those things. But you really don't ever hear the coaches talk about, all right, we got to try to win the team championship, or you need to win an individual title. It really is, all right, let's see if we can get a little better in this position. We notice some guys are doing this. Let's work on that a little bit in today's practice. And it really is, the focus is always just, hey, let's get a little bit better, let's improve, and then let's go out and let the competitions be the fun, where you kind of have the payoff for all of the work you're doing in the room.
Hey, Jeff, I want to ask, from the outside, the numbers for this team would make you think possibly, could this be the most dominant Penn State team? I mean, the numbers are unbelievable, how they've outscored opponents and so on. What is your take on how this season resonates with you? This team resonates with you? Is it any different from their amazing successes in the past? Like, how does this team in particular stand out to you?
Yeah, it is. A couple of things, Frank, to just backtrack on that. You could kind of see what is happening here over the last couple of years coming. And I remember talking to some of the fans at the post NCAA celebration in 2024 when they set the point scoring record. And we were talking about it and kind of half kidding, but I think everybody realized that this point scoring record team, as we look ahead to the next 5 years, might be the worst team in this coming 5-year run. And I think that is very much a possibility as we sit here today, because I do think this year's team, what we're seeing in terms of dominance, is a little different even than what we've seen the last couple of years, or any of Cale's previous teams, or for that matter, any other college wrestling team. Again, when you're looking at individual dominance, they now do those dominant rankings, and you have 6 guys that are sitting there in the top 10, and Josh Barr would be number 2, right behind only Mitchell Messenbrink if he had one more match under his belt. So really, they have 7 of the 11 most dominant wrestlers in the country on one team. Again, there's a bunch of different ways you can add up and you get the same result in terms of the domination. The fact that there are 22 wrestlers in the entire country that go into the postseason undefeated in Division I, 7 of them are in one room at Penn State. And again, there's a bunch of different ways you can break that down. The statistics speak for themselves. We've just not seen a team, at least through the dual meet season, have this type of dominance, and certainly not in a conference like the Big Ten.
Jeff, this is this is mind-boggling, as you know, and I wonder if one of the things that we've talked about all the time is this going to break through to the point where, like, you're talking about on Sports Center and that kind of thing, which it does not seem like that's the case, and I don't think Cael Sanderson much cares if that's the case, but could that happen? Is there anything, maybe star power of an individual guy or something like that could make them have that breakthrough?
It's interesting because I think, watching the excitement around the hockey, obviously wrestling Olympic gold is kind of the ultimate in our sport. And I think the fact that you have as many guys on this roster right now that could be competing for Olympic gold here in a few years as well probably does add to the potential here for that breakthrough that you're talking about. Again, when you're looking at the numbers, I keep having people ask me, what can you compare this to? And I can't think of something to compare it to in terms of a 3-year run here. And then obviously Levi Haynes is the only senior leaving from the starting lineup. So the potential there for this 4-year run, by Penn State. I can't think of a program that has had successive years where over a 3-4 year run, you're arguing that this team and then the next and then the next may be the best in the history of the sport. Again, we've had dynasties and we've had great teams and great runs. UCLA basketball obviously dominated with John Wooden there, but I don't know that it was year after year like, yeah, but this team's even better and probably the greatest ever. I wasn't old enough. Maybe there were discussions like that, but that's the only program I can think of that would be even possibly in the same breath here in terms of just sheer domination and improvement over that domination when you've reached the truly the pinnacle of the sport, not just winning championships, but being viewed as historically the greatest ever.
It's crazy to think that this all started with a 9 seed at the NCAA tournament in 2011, Quentin Wright having to run the table as David Taylor and Frank Molinaro lost in the finals. And that's Cale's first NCAA individual championship at Penn State, powered to the team championship. You look at this year's team, just going through it. Lilladal, number 1. Marcus Blaze, number 1. Braden Davis, down to 14 this week. Shane Van Ness, 1. Duke, 4. Messenbrink, 1. Haynes, 1. Rocco Welsh, 1. Josh Barr, 1. Cole Mirasola, number 5. He's up from number 6. I wanted to ask you about just expectations for individual. And we know that this team puts team above all else, but individual championships, because there's been years, the 5 national champions, and then there's been guys or times where there's been 5 guys in the finals. Penn State wins a team title and they walk out with kind of a little sour taste in the mouth. So what is it for individual goals this year? What do you think satisfies the appetite for such a dominant lineup? That's 93% of their individual bouts this dual season.
Yeah, again, the numbers are just they're hard to get your head around, and I've learned not to put limits on what I think the program is capable of, because I did get asked a couple of years ago, do you think they can break the Big Ten scoring record? I'm like, well, I don't think you're ever going to see. Iowa had 9 champions one year in the conference tournament back in 1983, and my argument was you're never going to see that again. Well, then it comes along this year's team, and I'm not going to have 9 champions, but I'm telling you, it's in the conversation. Like it's not absolute crazy talk, as I would have suggested it would have been even just a couple of years ago. So, I'm not putting any limits on what these guys can do. And I think when you go through that lineup, Braden Davis included, I think all 10 of those guys are capable of finishing very, very high on the podium in Cleveland. And I think, what this coaching staff does an extraordinary job of is getting each individual ready for their optimal performance. And then obviously the kids have to go out and perform. But I think, there's not a guy in that lineup that I don't think is capable of competing for a national title. Davis has the toughest road just because of Jesse Mendez being in the same weight class, and Mendez is the one Nittany Lion who is also dominating the field this year, like a Penn State wrestler. But with the possible exception of Davis, I mean, I think the other 9 guys, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that individually any of them aren't capable of going out and winning a Big Ten and a national title.
Jeff, we've mentioned David Taylor here a little bit. Of course, he's the head coach at Oklahoma State, and there's some people, maybe they're just trying to make this conversation work, but saying that, is Oklahoma State and David Taylor, are they going to be able to close the gap and on Penn State and actually make this a competition? Because Penn State hasn't lost a dual meet in 6 years. They haven't lost at home in 10. They've won the last 4 national titles. Is Oklahoma State actually going to have the ability to truly challenge Penn State and knock them off in the near future? And would that actually that rise, is that a good thing, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the sport, right, folks, or anytime you get a team that starts to dominate either a division or a conference or the entire sport, yeah, fans that aren't fans of that team start to look for, all right, who's the team that can do it, and yeah, I think Oklahoma State is best positioned, both because I think David's obviously a very good coach. I think they also have resources unlike anybody else in the sport. And obviously, Penn State has good resources. Iowa has good resources. None of them are matching what Oklahoma State is bringing to the table here in terms of NIL money and just everything that surrounds the program in terms of money they can bring for support staff and all of those things. And they've got some really good young wrestlers in that program. I mean, elite guys. In terms of can they compete and win a national title from Penn State, again, things can change fairly quickly in sports. I just what Penn State has going right now, I don't see it happening in the next 3 or 4 years. Could it happen, sometime after that? Sure. And I'm not ruling out the possibility again with the transfer portal and everything involved as a possible something changes. Sure. I just it feels like Penn State is in a really good place, really solid place. The kids that want to be here and their families know why they want to be here. And I don't think you're going to see, many change their minds about that. And right now, top to bottom, that roster is just, we've just not seen anything like it in the history of the sport in terms of 1 through 10 starters and then depth in the room. That combination is just, while Oklahoma State may close the gap some, and Ohio State is certainly a program that could be in the mix here as well. I just don't think anybody is going to be able to close the gap enough to where you're going into the national tournament thinking, boy, Penn State's in real trouble here. Again, at least for the next couple of years. Now, things again can change quickly, and who knows after the next couple of years. But Penn State is very well positioned to continue the dominance for at least the next 2-3 years anyway.
Jeff, I'm interested in covering Penn State wrestling a little bit because obviously it's a tiny fraction of the coverage that the football program gets. Are you at practice? Do you get to see what Sanderson's magic is? Do you get to talk to him sort of off the record a little bit? Give us a sense of what it's like around that program.
Yeah, I do. I've not been around it, unfortunately, as much this year as I'd like, or as I normally would be. Just some things with my schedule have changed and kind of interrupted that a little bit. But Kale and that coaching staff as a whole, they are just truly consistent with their approach day in and day out. And I know everybody strives for it. Everybody talks about, hey, that's what you want, right? I mean, that's what we all want in our daily life is we want to be the same person in every situation and handle everything with aplomb. Most of us, or I'll speak for myself, I fall well short of that. It's like, oh man, I wish I would have kept a better composure there or not gotten flustered over that particular situation. If these guys do it, man, it is out of the sight of the public and even the guys in the room. And I think when you have a staff that lives what it preaches, it makes the buy-in very, very easy for the kids and the families that are in the program. And I think they have, it's not just a buy-in from the student athletes, it's the families. When you talk to the dads and the moms, they're appreciative that their kids have the opportunity to be around this program and kind of soak up some of the energy and knowledge that it provides above and beyond the wrestling mat.
Is that why? Oh, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to follow up about Oklahoma State. Okay, so is there a possibility, realistic, that Penn State could wrestle Oklahoma State in either Beaver Stadium or their stadium? Like, the record's like 40,000 fans at an outdoor wrestling match. I'm thinking if Penn State can get 75,000 for an ice hockey game with the temperature wind chill at 0, how many fans could they get in that stadium to watch Penn State wrestling versus Oklahoma State? And is that even realistic, do you think? Or is that just kind of wishful thinking down the road?
Yeah, no, I would think it is, and no inside info here, just so we're clear. I have not actually talked to Cal.
He's playing with you folks. He's playing with you folks right now.
Come on,
I have not talked to anybody about it, but just knowing Pat Kraft and his interest in putting on big spectacles and doing things that can draw interest to your programs, I would find it impossible to believe that they haven't at least entertained the idea. I do think there's a lot more to the logistics than maybe some folks initially might realize. And when Iowa did its duel with Oklahoma State and set that record, they did have the contingency plan, and they got very fortunate, and it was a very good day to have it. But they had the plan ahead of time, which Penn State would obviously have to have as well. All right, these are the 16,000 people that if we have to move it to the Jordan Center, we will do that because obviously if it's raining or snowing or even if the temperature is just, I don't know what the cutoff would be, but I can't imagine you'd wrestle in much below 50 just because of what that, first and foremost, you're trying to take care of your student athletes. And so, you have to have that contingency plan in place. And then there's a lot to it with the stadium because you're trying to keep the field in game conditions. The hockey game's a little easier because it's off season for football. I don't know. Yeah, you can't really do it off season for football with wrestling. You've got to pretty much do it right there at the beginning of November. And so, again, there's just a lot to consider. I also think that it is something that they are considering and would like to pull off. I think it's something that they may need to wait until everything is done with the stadium renovations. I don't know what all's involved there from the logistics, but that would be my guess, is that we're at least a couple of years off from that being something that could come to fruition.
Okay.
The good news is this current football coach isn't a diva and wouldn't mind having Kale go up in a big match and probably.
Here we go with Kalista again.
A lot of big games. Penn State came up short over the last 12.
Really? I had no idea.
I've heard. I've read it on the Twitter. Jim, going back to the Oklahoma State question, is that a match that I think people would want to see in both fan bases every single year if David Taylor raises up, Oklahoma State to Penn State's level? Can we look forward to that being on the schedule every single year? Well, there was that 2-year run. And then I wanted to throw in another caveat. The NIL money got a lot of play the last couple of weeks when the budget was released of only having $1 million. Just why is it that $1 million satisfies the appetite for Penn State's wrestling? I know those are two distinct questions I just threw at you.
Yeah, well, in terms of the Oklahoma State, yes, the fans, I think, would love it. One of the challenges with the wrestling schedule is what Cal and Cody really is heavily involved in the scheduling. And what they're trying to do is, because they know the draw that they understand the significance of when they go to a Wyoming gets twice as many fans for that meet as they do for any other duel in their history. Well, that's a huge deal for that Wyoming program. So, they are trying to keep the Pennsylvania history. Obviously, they want to wrestle Lehigh every year because of the tradition there. They like to try to get one other Pennsylvania school on the schedule each year. Drexel this season. And when then you get a tournament in there, a 1 or 2 day tournament, and all of a sudden you're down to just a handful of dates. Yep. And if you lock into a long-term series, again, it really limits your ability then to get to other areas of the country, to give other programs that chance to have Penn State come in, or a chance to come and experience what it's like at Rec Hall or the Jordan Center. So Yeah, fans would love it. I think that I don't think there's any. I don't think it's Penn State or Oklahoma State not wanting it to happen. I think there's just some of the logistics. My guess is that you'll see them at least wrestle a home and home at some point here in the next 4 to 6 years. But again, it's just hard, especially if you stay locked in with Lehigh, which both programs really want to do that because of the history involved there. It really, I think, limits your ability to go out and then schedule another kind of long-term, semi-permanent opponent year in and year out.
Cool. And the NIL, why is like 1.5 million satisfied?
Yeah, I don't know that there is a specific. I know there's a lot. Penn State. I think that the view, at least within the coaching staff and within the program, is, hey, we want to. Again, they're there to help the kids in any way they can. So part of that these days is certainly the NIL, but they're also working with kids and families that they want to have the bigger picture and the understanding of what an education means and what an opportunity to be part of a program and something bigger than yourself and all of those things, the things that, I think most of us at least cling to is the good in college athletics. And I think they really believe it. So, I think it's one of those things they certainly want to be competitive on the NIL front. It's, you may get guys come to your program for all of the things I'm talking about. If it's a little less money, if it's a lot less money, it becomes a much harder sell. So, I think Penn State's going to be fine in that regard. I think they have, Clay Steadman just does a tremendous job kind of working with the kids and kind of figuring out their needs and their opportunities and how to balance that with everything else that they have going on in their lives. And it's not an easy balance. I don't think it is for any student athlete, but I think I think there's an awareness of how attentive this staff is to the kids' needs, wants, and then also, hey, this is what's best for you, both short term and long term, and trust that we're looking out for your overall best interest. And I think the track record speaks pretty clearly for itself in that regard.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Good.
All right, 30 seconds. What's the one matchup you're looking forward to when it comes to nationals?
Oh boy, for the national tournament, if Marcus Blaze and Jax Forrest do meet, and honestly, you could go right down the list at 133. I'm picking that one out just because of the team drama that would also unfold there. But honestly, sign me up for anything from the quarterfinals on in at 133. And again, there's going to be a lot of great matches, a lot of great opportunities, but that one probably would get juices going the most for the largest amount of fans for both Penn State and Oklahoma State.
Who wins that, Jeff? Who wins it?
I mean, I'm certainly not going to get bet against Marcus. I just think Marcus has a really special disposition, and not that Jax doesn't, and not that Seidel, and you go right down the list. Again, 133 is absolutely loaded. But Marcus Blaze is also just built a little different and has a special gene in him that I think at least gives him a great shot here to pull everything out.
I knew what your answer was going to be. Not just a hat rack. Got my juices flowing right there. So,
if you say so.
Ironhead Jeff Byers joining us here on the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. Jeff, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to listen to all your calls. Folks, make sure you're following them. Make sure you're listening to them on the radio, on Fox Sports in State College, and on the Goon and Ironhead show, which is always great. Always great. So, Jeff, thanks a lot for being here.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Always love talking to Jeff. Always brings the excitement, and he is one of the best. You guys sit down front, doing the important stuff in the press box. I'm in the back hanging with Jeff Byers. We're normally having a good time talking everything Penn State, but he's one of the great guys in Penn State sports. Former walk-on, too, by the way, for the football team.
And it gives you an opportunity to call somebody Ironhead, which is fun.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's fun.
Always love Jeff Byers. Frank, your expectations for the guys, just individually, as you're covering them.
Yeah, as I'm covering them. So they got 7 guys that are undefeated out of their 10 starters going into Big Ten championships. So, I mean, they set a points record at Big Tens last year at Northwestern, this year at Penn State. So I'm thinking with those 7 guys alone, I think they break their own points record at Penn State, Big Ten championships. Then the key is to me then nationals, because I think obviously they're going to win another national title. They're favored to then break their own points record there that they've done the past 2 years. But how many guys do they have in the finals and that are going to win it at nationals? And last year, despite doing all that history making stuff, they only had 3 guys in the finals. 2 of them won. I think they definitely have maybe 4, 5, 6 guys in the finals. Definitely more than 2 winners. So yeah, you can make the case the best Penn State wrestling team of all time.
Yeah, real quick about that, because we brought up UCLA basketball. I'm old enough to remember that. And that was maybe as pure a definition of the word dynasty as we've ever had in American sports, in the sports that everybody pays attention to and that are on national TV and we all watch. But UCLA basketball, it was never like, there's no way they can be beat. It was never like that. I mean, they lost regular season games once in a while. This is another level, and I understand wrestling is kind of an individual / team sport as opposed to a real team sport, so it is different. But again, UCLA basketball, I think, illustrates how insane this is. What's happening?
Yeah. Just one real quick thing. It's not they've won 86 straight dual meets. It's not even that, to me, that makes it so hard to wrap your head around. It's how they've dominated during that streak, because that's the thing that sets, to me, you may never see this again in college sports, because they're not just beating teams every time they go out. They're demolishing them. They outscored their opponents this year 630 to 39. I don't even know. And it was similar in the past. This is by far that's the craziest number, but it's the domination to me that goes beyond the winning.
So. I agree. 100%.
Ohio State, the number 2 tournament team ranked in the country, just got their doors blown off in a dual meet.
Yep.
And it wasn't even close. Like, the UCLA comparison is great. I mean, that's a fantastic comparison. That's much better than my comparison of Matt McGloin having Penn State in a top 4 seed.
Well, I mean, actually, Ironhead brought it up, but maybe some people aren't old enough to remember that, but I am, and it was incredible. But it still was a little different than this.
Right. Yeah. Moving on, NFL Combine. We end the show with the NFL Combine. 9 Penn State players are out in Indianapolis. I've covered 1 combine. It's actually really fun, and I think we talk about guys showing personality. Like, I remember just talking to Mike Gesicki and Barkley had a huge contingent. Gesicki really didn't have that big of a contingent. Just the guys are loose when they're standing up at the podium, a lot of them, at least the year that I was there. And it was fun to be around. Really interesting. Just watching all the interactions with the media. But you got Zane Durant, Denai Dennis Sutton working out today. Drew Aller, though, is the topic for Penn State fans. All the hubbub. And of course, I don't want to compare him to Anthony Morelli, but it was the same thing kind of with Morelli, where everybody said, well, Morelli's under the he could make every single throw. Everybody is praising Drew Aller's arm and what they're expecting to see him as a full go out there in Indy, which he has to throw, I think, out there. Can't wait for pro day. As he recovers from that ankle injury. What do you guys make of how the NFL scouts are, I don't want to say drooling over them, but Mike, you kind of said like the NFL geeks earlier in the show, drooling over the talent of Drew Aller?
Well, there still is a piece of the football intelligentsia that likes the kind of player Drew Aller is. Old school, classic size, arm, the old term arm talent comes into play. I think it's really, I actually wrote about this. Pro Football Focus did a 3-round mock draft a couple weeks ago, and they had Aller going in the 3rd round, but they also had a huge gap between the number 1 pick, which of course is going to be Mendoza, to like number 25 was Ty Simpson. And then there was a big gap, and then the North Dakota State guy, and then Aller. Well, I guarantee you, we all know the NFL draft, how it works. These teams are going to talk themselves into falling in love with quarterbacks. There's not going to be that kind of a big gap where there's 25 picks and nobody takes a quarterback. That's not going to happen. So I think this might be a draft class where the opportunity is decent for Aller to be a fairly high pick. I'm not sure if I'm that high on him, but I think the opportunity is there.
Yeah, if you were an NFL GM, would you take one of your first picks and make it Drew Aller? I mean, I don't know what to say at this point. Those guys are way smarter, and they're going to be interviewing them and putting them through every possible mental test there could be an interview. So I'm, it's part of me would be surprised in a sense if he goes quite that high. But then, do they fall in love with what could be? But the thing is, Penn State fans have been trying to fall in love with what could be for 4 years.
That's a good point.
With him. I mean, here's the thing. He had so much talk before he ever played at Penn State. His first game, an incredibly tough situation at Purdue on the road. He's a true freshman, first game, and he came in and he looked like a world beater, like nothing bothered him. Completely unflappable, like just this is something we've never seen. Well, it didn't turn out that way, and I'm not blaming him for one thing or another, but 4 years people were waiting for the next coming of what was going to be the best Penn State quarterback. And how do NFL personnel make sense of this? I wouldn't pick him in the first 3 rounds.
Put that on a t-shirt. I want that slogan on a plain white t-shirt.
Exactly.
Penn State fans have been trying to fall in love with what could be for the past with what could be. That's what I want on a t-shirt. I want to sell those for $10.
I wonder if it's more likely that
we are on the back.
There you go. I wonder if it's more likely that he'll go to a good team.
Yeah.
But in the first 3 rounds,
I don't think anybody's going to say. I don't think any of these bad teams that are in the quarterback business, that are shopping for a quarterback, are going to say he's our guy for the next 10 years. I don't think he's going to be that kind of pick.
Mm-hmm.
But he could maybe a backup on a good team.
Yeah, but I mean, a backup's always a possibility, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a 4th round pick, I go back to Shedeur Sanders. He's not afraid to make any throw in the NFL. We could debate where he was drafted and everything else, but he's not afraid to make any throw in the NFL. And look where he went last year. And then you have Drew Aller, all the arm talent in the world, and all his tape shows. The tape shows I don't push the ball down the field, whether that's him or the staff. And I just find it hard to believe that an NFL team would put him in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I can't see it. I mean, I go back to my mind goes back to Drew Aller against Villanova, for example, and that interception he threw, to the Northwestern game, which was his last game, and the interception he threw in the end zone to start it. And I'm thinking, this is the end of his career. And I'm thinking, how do you then go with what you really saw, not what you're thinking, not what you're interviewing, what you really saw as a performer after 4 years as a quarterback? How do you put that as a top 3 round pick? I can't see it.
So you guys don't think he's going that high?
Well, I don't know, but I would not. I would find it hard to. I would be kind of stunned a little bit.
I'm a tail end of the 4th round, thought early 5th.
Yes,
because he does have the talent. And
that's safe for me.
We should point out while we're on the draft and the combine and everything, Vega Ione is going to be a first rounder, almost certainly, and the number 1 guard in the draft. So that's pretty cool. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens with Zakee Wheatley, G'day Dennis Sutton, and Zane Durant.
Former Penn State beat reporter who's now on the Steelers beat for the local state college affiliate, oddly, WTAJ, Andrew Clay. He's actually out at the combine. He has a pretty good story out. And Clay's a buddy of the podcast, talk all the time. I've been on his. about just the relationships with all the guys that are out at the combine. Talks about Vega being only a 3-star recruit, being out there with all these other guys. It's pretty good reading. So check out Andrew Clay's story on that. But yeah, I mean, that should be the story for Penn State, that they have an offensive lineman being drafted in the first round out there. And along with all the defensive guys, 9 guys. Deny Dennis Sutton. I'm hoping he's in the second. Hopefully he just rips it up.
Possible. I think it's possible. Not first, but maybe second.
Yeah, kind of an underwhelming. Didn't have the sack numbers this year to be in the first round. But we'll see what he does at the combine. People love to fall in love with numbers. Hopefully he lights it up there because he's a good guy to talk to, at least for us here in the media. Nick Singleton is out there. Katron Allen, Drew Shelton, some other guys out there for the combine. What makes it a successful combine? Last question. What makes it a successful combine for Penn State? The name and brand of Penn State.
Okay. All right.
I can get that first round draft pick. That's a big thing to me. And then maybe just the numbers of guys that get drafted.
Yeah.
Right. It was a disappointing season, but they still got 9 guys that are there. Could you get actually close? How close to 9 guys can you get to being drafted?
And it'll be really interesting to see what supposedly Nick Singleton was not 100% physically. Supposedly, we know Drew Aller is coming off an injury. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how those guys are perceived. Those two in particular, Singleton and Aller, by the NFL folks, and the whole everything that goes into drafting quarterbacks, and really in a much different way, everything that goes into drafting running backs. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch that. It always is. I'm with you, big guy. I like the combine.
I always look forward to the leaked like test scores. Do they still do that? Like from back in the day? Remember, this guy scored 17 on the test.
The Wonderlic test.
The Wonderlic test. That's it. Oh, all right. Good show, guys. Thanks a lot for the Jeff Ironhead Byers coming on the show. I want to thank you for the likes and follows. I want to thank you guys for all the comments on the show last week that we did with John Ziegler. I know that was, stepping out of the box a little bit, talking Penn State, going a completely different direction. Got a lot of great feedback on doing the interview. Had a couple, naysayers that we did the interview, but hey, the one thing we're going to do is we'll talk to anybody. We'll talk to anybody that wants to come on and talk to anything related to Penn State. We're going to ask you questions, and that's what we're going to do. So, anything, closing thoughts, Mr. Bodani, Mr. Gross.
Well, I'm looking forward to Penn State's Pro Day. That's not much fun for us to actually cover, but it'll be interesting to see some of the things that happen there. And it won't be too long till spring practice, baby.
No Penn State Pro Day for me because that's the day traveling to the NCAA Wrestling Nationals.
Oh, right, yeah, Well,
we got 2 big wrestling tournaments, so that's kind of exciting in a sense to talk about. So one, and the Big Tens, remind people, the Big Tens are at Penn State.
Penn State. March
7th, March 8th.
Still get tickets. March 8th. You can still get tickets, yes. Early.
And they're not that expensive.
What's that?
They're not that expensive.
They are not that expensive.
No, you could get an all sessions pass for maybe $100 or something.
$100. Cheaper than what you could have got during the pre-sale if you're a Penn State wrestling season ticket holder.
Absolutely.
This is my disgusted face with that.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you, big guy.
All right, that does it for this edition of Blue White Tailgate Pawcast, Season 3. We're 3 episodes in already. Can you believe it? We're marching towards 100.
Yeah.
Great time to be alive. See you guys again there.